because I emphasize that George Floyd was valuable. George Floyd was worthy. George Floyd was mighty. And George Floyd was Gianna's father. He was much to these brothers and sisters. He was much to his community. He was much to the playing of basketball. He was much to Yates. He was much to the playing of football. And so on this day, in the midst of so many commemorative tragedies dealing with African Americans, Black Americans who are patriotic, who have served in wars, who have given birth to woman that is 7 years old. She says, and told us that her father would save the world. So my task here today, besides embracing this family, getting you to have a sense of what Breonna Taylor's family is feeling, what Jacob Blake's family is feeling, what Walter Scott's family is feeling, what Tamir Rice could have graduated this year is feeling, what Abdou Diablo's, that mother who didn't even know what to do, why my son unarmed in a dark hallway in the Bronx, what are they feeling? Mr. Rashad's family feeling, his 8-year-old is feeling, Ahmaud Arbery's family is feeling, Sandra Bland's family, Pamela Turner's family, Danny Ray Thomas's family are feeling now. And so we were propelled by this episode. I don't know about anybody else, but I had seen much, but I had not seen a view of pleasant enjoyment in causing the last breath to leave someone calling out, "I can't breathe," for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, but more importantly, calling out that special bond with his mother. And his wonderful sister would understand. I call him his big sister. She would understand. It is without a doubt that these Floyd children, siblings, these family members have graced this nation with their commitment, with their sadness, with their tragedy, with the heinousness of what they had to experience. And you will hear from them, you'll hear the pain that continues. The United States Congress was challenged to do something. And I want to thank my colleagues in the Congressional Black Caucus, my colleague and friend Karen Bass, the Chairman Jerry Nadler. And so we worked without ceasing. And we took into account the expertise of the lawyers that are here who time after time have had to show up to talk to mothers and fathers with them asking them, their lawyers. They came to give some relief, but the families were asking them why. And with their expertise, the numbers of things that had come up, let me make sure I mention Robbie Tolan. Because Robbie Tolan is our neighbor, Bel Air. Robbie Tolan lived, and sometimes you live with a sense of guilt, but Robbie Tolan was racially profiled, assumed that he wasn't the owner of a fancy SUV, even though his dad played major baseball and he was on the way, following him to a home. It's pretty strange if you're in a stolen car that you're going into a driveway and two people come out and say, "That's my son." That's pretty odd, but it happened in Bel Air. And when he was pushed against, when his family members, his mother and father were pushed against the wall, the garage door, he tried to lift up. He was shot point blank. He lived. So out of those stories, I don't want anyone to assume that the people who stand here today, I'm their lawyer today, have any angst or anger or against the cops or defund. We're about the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. The United States Congress heard that the voices were crying out and we passed this bill. That's what this is about. And so very briefly, what I will say is that we did something unique. We had a hearing last year. We passed a bill last year. In the midst of the outcry of the Floyds, but how kind they were to embrace others who were in pain. Right while they were in pain, Breonna Taylor came. Her family was in pain. They're still crying. Jacob Blake's family, he lived, but he is paralyzed. And he was simply trying to protect his children. And so it passed last year. This procedural dialogue is important, but I won't keep it long. It did not see a presidential signature. It did not see it because in the United States Senate, there was a bill that said that we believe, and I certainly give respect to the author of that bill, we hope to work with him. But his bill said we want to have body cams. I congratulate him for body cams. And so nothing was passed. But what happened this session is that this was passed with torpedo speed. We used a legitimate procedural House rule that says if you get this done before a certain deadline, then you can pass this bill without any hearings or any markups. Not anything ill-fated or illegitimate. It was the bill with refinement of last year. That means this bill is now headed to the United States Senate. We passed this bill in the House of Representatives. It was a victory for the Floyd family. I am grateful that they were able to join us. They were visited by members, including the Speaker of the House. So let me quickly just say to you what we're doing going forward. This bill is a bill that will speak to the hearts and minds of those who have been harmed by wrong kind of policing standards. And quickly, it will end racial profiling. It will provide training for the 18,000 police departments. It will ensure that there is a standard for excessive force, no more, a duty to intervene. You see, did anyone bother to say this was wrong? Did any officer who should have been trained say that he was racially profiled? Oh yes, somebody said somebody called about a bill. We have yet to find out whether the bill even was what they said the bill was. And I would test any man on the street to say, what is this bill? How do we know? Racially profiled. Came into a store that he always comes in. That's ending. Ending no-knock drug warrants would impact right here in Houston, Texas. Ending the idea in a criminal case that you had to be willful. Now you can be knowing and reckless. It is only to give fairness to those who go into the courtroom. It's not against anyone. To ensure that we have body cams. To ensure that we have pattern and practice. These lawyers will talk about that. To ensure consent decrees. We work with people who every day are frustrated by the system that knocks their clients out. And only because there are those who can civilly settle that they have any chance. Laquan in Chicago, running away, getting shot. Tamir Rice, a little BB gun, little baby of 12 years old. And Trayvon Martin. This guy said he was a civil patrol under color of law. And yes, we are thinkers, and the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act has the ability to be able to reimagine policing, and that means that people in Houston, different groups, can come together and say, here are our ideas. This is how we want to see our neighborhood police. This is how we want to see you come to a domestic violence case, because you know what? That's a violent case for police officers. We want them to go home as well. So we have resources to help do that. That's the message that I want to be given. Not this message of what we were against, but what are we for? We're for the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, which takes policing to the level of civil rights. It is a seismic big day for policing in America. And so, as Gianna said to us, it wasn't really a statement, it was an instruction. My daddy changed the world, and we looked and we were empty-handed. We didn't really have anything to give her to say. We had no life-giving tools that we could utilize, and this is what we said we needed to give for her words to be worth to have merit, we had to do something. And so it is important for us to understand this is a seismic civil rights change. It's a big day. It's a big law. It is a law that needs to be passed and put on President Biden's desk as quickly as possible. The Senate needs to pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act to get to the president's desk. I want to end on this note because I want to dispel myths. This is not a myth, but I just want to acknowledge my good friend Jason Crow because we introduced the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act dealing with law enforcement integrity. Its name was the George Floyd Trust and Integrity Act that dealt with the training of police officers. It is merged into this bill. That's what's so good about this bill. It's a big umbrella that got many topics, demilitarization of policing. But this final word that I want to say captures Dr. Martin Luther King's Why We Can't Wait. It captures his injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. It captures Maya Angelou's, if they show you who they are, that is who they are. We want good police officers as they are around this community, walking back and forth and driving and doing their work. But we want to make sure that if you are constantly finding yourself on the other side of what is fair to a citizen, that you're in a registry that says that you can't work again. That's what the Tamir Rice, that police officer, went back and forth with bad conduct. So I'm going to end on the understanding of qualified immunity and that this is not a bipartisan bill. The Cato Institute supports this bill. The Cook Foundation, these are Republican-based institutions. And we are working with our colleagues in the Senate. But the angst that people talk about is how qualified immunity, that's going to be the thing that nobody wants. Could you take a moment to understand what it is? Again, I'm not going to get into weeds, but I'm ending on this. We love the Supreme Court on instances of justice. But the Supreme Court made up the qualified immunity. It's not a statute where the people voted on it. Teach. The Supreme Court made it up. Teach. And they made it up to the extent that if you are a victim, if you are a plaintiff, if you have been harmed because misconduct, remember, I didn't say you were harmed because an officer looked at you or greeted you with a smile or even arrested you. I said you were harmed when lives were taken away, when you were brutalized, when someone found you and you said, well, what happened to you? When drugs were dropped down on you. Qualified immunity created by the courts, not a statute. And so what we have done with that is to be able to give the victim the opportunity to go into court. By modifying that standard, and the simple part of it is, that means the officer and the victim, the family, can go into court to argue that my loved one did not die in the normal course of policing, did not die in the normal course of policing. He died and he was harmed and he should not be prevented because qualified immunity blocks you at the courthouse door. That's what happened to Robbie Tolan, all the way to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, you've got to do this case right here in Houston, Texas. And it came back, he went into the federal court, dismissed qualified immunity. You can't sue a police officer. He's already immune, or she. We come here today with a humble expression of our respect for each and every person that is here, and a humble respect for the family that is here. And it is a humble respect for my colleague as well. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased to have my colleague come forward because we work as a team. As I step away from this podium, this is the answer that little Gianna asked us when she said, my daddy changed the world. This is a bill that now goes to the United States Senate. There should be no action other than a forward-moving action to pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. My friend, the Honorable Al Green.
Make no mistake about it, this bill is styled with George Floyd's name because the Honorable Shelia Jackson Lee was in the Congress of the United States of America and had the opportunity to request and get it done. For this, she deserves an expression of love and appreciation. She does. And make no mistake about it, this bill has traversed its way through the Congress of the United States of America because she is persistent. She does not give in, she does not give out, she does not give up, and as a result, this bill has passed the House of the United States of America. Make no mistake about it. I want to congratulate you and thank you for just being you and not letting this go unnoticed. So many people sometimes forget that this is a human being.
Human being.
He was somebody.
Yes, he was.
He was somebody.
Yes, he was.
He may not have been on Wall Street, but on his street he was somebody.
Amen.
He may not have gone to the White House, but at his house he was somebody.
Preach for him.
He has been fruitful and multiplied. He was somebody, and this young lady is somebody, and she has inspired us.
Amen.
To continue to stay with this, and until the end, we will be with you because you are somebody too. Thank you. Now, to this family, I want to thank you for the courage you have shown, the tenacity, and I have heard many members of the family speak, and they always cause tears to well in my eyes as they give a hue and cry, a clarion call for justice. They've never asked for anything other than justice for George Floyd. And it would just seem to me that we are now in a position such that we can not only have justice for George Floyd, but also justice for the many other potential George Floyds, because this bill that we have passed in the House of Representatives is a bill that's going to send shockwaves across the police departments, wherein you've got rogue cops who assume that they can not only be the arresting officer, but they can also be the judge. Not only be the arresting officer and the judge, but they can also be the prosecutor. Not only be the arresting officer, the judge, and prosecutor, but also the jury. But here's the thing that will always tear at my heart. We will not allow you to be the arresting officer, the judge, the jury, the prosecutor, and the executioner. We're not going to allow that. And that's what this bill does. This bill sends a message to the rest of those, not all of the police, but to those who are rogues. It sends a message to them that we're watching you, and now there is law that is going to capture you, and you will be punished. There should never be another George Floyd.
That's right.
Guilty of being black. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman yields back. The gentleman yields back. As I bring up this distinguished legal scholars, let me just say it's members of Congress whose passionate hearts combine their history. Please let me acknowledge that Al Green was a judge. Both of us were. He was a long-standing judge in the People's Court, and not the one on television. And so he dealt with officers many times. I signed probable cause warrants late at night as a judge for police officers. I questioned them, do you have the right facts? I don't want anybody to fool around with us and try to call us names, because it is right. We are asking for justice. We will not take a back seat to the law and order that our communities, people of color, adhere to. Soldiers that come home that are people of color, they adhere to the law and order of this nation. We won't take a back seat. So before I ask Ben to come up, I just want to make sure We know Gianna, who is here, George Floyd's son. Paula is here, who is her sister to a mom, who is Roxy. And I know you call her mom, so that's your mom. Your mom, we want to say that. When you want to say your mom?
My mom.
Your mom. Dear friends that are here as well, that are in support. Our beloved sister, I'm calling her name first, and she's out hiding in the back. Tanya Floyd. She's make some noise over here, y'all. Come on. That's my sister there. Come on. Wow. It always inspires me. Always tears come to her eyes, because these were two peas in a pod. They hung out together. People need to know what pain people deal with. Okay. Right. They need to deal with. Tanya, just let us see you, please. Yeah. They need to know that. But every time she speaks, you know, she got another story to tell us. And I just want people to understand what we're here about. Somebody in Breonna Taylor's would have a story about her. This is a family that is experiencing pain, and Tanya captures it with her eloquence. I just want her to know she's my sis, I'm hers, but the point is she is George Floyd's sister, and everybody should know her love, her affection, and what she does for the umbrella of this family. I thank you, my sister. Just want everybody to see you, okay? I'm going to start, Brother Rodney Floyd. Where are you at? All right. Brother Rodney Floyd, he got the football shoulders. That's what he got, okay? He inherited George Floyd's football. And if you want to see what George, you can see it in all of them. Thank you. He was in Washington, got to see the historic vote, the gavel that said the George Floyd vote is passed. All right, we love you. We love you. And where is Brother PJ? All right. All right. He's almost, and it's not humorous, he's almost poetic in terms of how he has wound his story and captured the hearts and minds of this nation. And I do want to say this, that they have been so embracing of people who were timid to come up to them, who didn't look like them, expected hatefulness over anger, and yet they got love and respect. They have really changed the world. I thank you for that, PJ. Felonious, if you have. All right, I got you. Brandon was in Washington as well. So was Rodney. All right? And Brandon Williams is like the little nephew that really just emulates George Floyd's spirit. I thank you. I know that you'll be, all of these folk you'll hear about are going to be major components of this trial going forward. We're going to count on them in this very trying time and pray for them as well. I want to acknowledge Keita, Mrs. Floyd over here. And I want to say it with her. You'll hear more about this, but they're doing a major foundation that deals with piercing into this relationship of police and community and training. Can you imagine? They're doing that in the midst of their hurt. So I want to thank them very much. I want to acknowledge Silky. Where is he? Yeah. Okay. My brother right over here. I want to acknowledge Tiffany Cofield, and she's been a friend of George. She lets you know that real just by his side. And Karis, I've gotten to know him. Boy, he has a history. He looks, 21, but he's been around for decades. He has a lot of history, and I just want to make sure I have not missed, before you come up and re-say their names again, but I would be, since they're in our house, I just want to make sure that you're going to get Antonio, you're going to get Chris Stewart, and anybody else. Oh, I've got, there's two Tiffanys, right? Okay, the Tiffany Anderson. Hall, did you sign on this paper? I'm looking right at you. I think you missed it, but Tiffany Hall, okay. Do you know there's another Tiffany here? There's three Tiffanys, okay. Tiffany was in Washington as well. All right. I think I got all the family members. You got everybody here? Okay. Let me move now. Mr. Crump and I have had a decades-long knowledge and working relationship, and his moment in history, or his place in history, is already cemented, because there are struggling families, even we were just down in Lamar, that have no other route but to find Ben Crump's number. And we owe him what Gianna has said, a world that has been changed, so that if these things happen, you have a right and fair access to the justice system. That is our task. And Mr. Crump, it is my commitment that as long as I move on this committee, we're going to find every way to find a change every day that's going to make your justice fight a fight that is both real and successful, even more than it's already been. Ben Crump.
Thank you, Congresswoman Shelia Jackson Lee, who is a force of nature, not just here in Houston, Texas, but especially at the United States Capitol. I mean, don't take my word for it. You just watch C-SPAN any day of the week, and you see she represents. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Yeah, she does deserve a round of applause. Force of nature. And to Judge, Congressman, mentor, just an example of a strong black man that we need so desperately in our country, leadership. We can never say thank you enough for what you all did for not only George Floyd family, but for families that are crying out for justice in the wilderness, and nobody is hearing them. Thank God you hear them and you respond. Thank you. I am very honored to be with these esteemed attorneys who represent the George Floyd family, Attorney Chris Stewart, Attorney Antonio Romanucci, and Attorney Justin Miller, who you will hear from momentarily as they explain the path forward, not only with the legislation, but equally important with the trial that is upon us, the trial that will have America fixated for the next 2 to 4 months, Congresswoman Jackson Lee.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a real referendum for how far we have come in our quest for equal justice under the law.
Yes.
But as we look at Gianna and the rest of the family, we're talking about George Floyd and this historic occasion of the passage of the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act.
Yes.
Now, why is that so significant? When Michael Brown was killed in Ferguson by the police in broad daylight with his hands up, and everybody started chanting, "Hands up, don't shoot," they wanted a police reform bill, but it did not happen.
That's right.
When 12-year-old Tamir Rice, months later, was killed on a playground by himself.
Yes.
I mean, a little boy playing by himself, and the police came up and shot him in 1.7 seconds on video, and he died bleeding in the snow. There was a lot of momentum to have a police reform act, but it did not happen. Then, months after that, Sandra Bland, you all know, was killed in Texas. I mean, for a traffic stop. There was a big push for police reform. It did not happen. When Alton Sterling was killed in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and it was on video, there was a big push for police reform, and it did not happen. Botham Jones, Dallas, Texas, right in this state, was killed. There was a big push for police reform. Did not happen. After that, Laquan McDonald in Chicago on video running away with 16 police officers present, shot 14 times. On record, it showed that the police all lied about what happened. There was a big push for police reform in Congress. It did not happen. Philando Castile, Minneapolis, Minnesota, killed with his girlfriend in the driver's seat and his baby daughter in the back seat on video. Big push for police reform in Congress. Did not happen. And then closer to home here in Texas, in Houston, you know, Pamela Turner, black woman, shot while she's on her back screaming, "I'm pregnant," by the police. Big push for police reform. Bernie Sanders, everybody was talking about we got to do something while they were on the election trail. Police reform did not happen in her name. Then we think about Danny Ray Thomas, a man having a mental health crisis right here in Houston, Texas. His pants down, walking in the middle of the highway. They shoot and kill him, Congressman Green. Big push for police reform in Congress. Did not happen. Then we saw in 2020, in a pandemic, when everything shut down except implicit bias and police brutality. We saw Breonna Taylor get killed in the sanctity of her own apartment at 1 o'clock in the morning from a no-knock warrant. They don't execute those warrants against other people, but they are comfortable doing it against our people in the morning. There was a big push for her to have police reform, say her name, but it did not happen. But it took your homeboy, a young man who grew up in CUNY Homes,
Houston, Texas, 18th Congressional District.
a young man who is a native son of Houston, to sacrifice his life and his soul for Lonis, to finally move the soul of the United States Congress to get the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act finally passed. So we say his name, George Floyd. We say his name, George Floyd. We say his name, George Floyd. And as I conclude, everybody now in the United States House of Representatives, with the passage of this act, Congresswoman, say his name, George Floyd. And that is what's historic about today. And we can never forget that this is history. We know we have some work to do with our brethren in the United States Senate. My colleagues are going to talk a little bit about some details in the bill, but remember this. What Congresswoman Jackson Lee said is so real. They keep saying, oh, qualified immunity, that you can't do that because that denies justice to police officers. Nobody's trying to deny justice to police officers. This bill won't deny them from having their day in court.
No, it won't have.
But what it will do is allow black families who are grieving and heartbroken to have their day in court too. That's all we're saying. Y'all remember Me Too? We just want equal justice too. The police should not matter more than George Floyd or Breonna Taylor or Ahmaud Arbery or 12-year-old Tamir Rice. This is a country of justice and equality, and that's what this bill speaks to. Right now, you'll hear from a great lawyer, a great colleague, attorney, Chris Stewart from Atlanta, Georgia.
Come around this way, dear.
Okay, yes. I'm Attorney L. Chris Stewart, Stewart Miller Simmons. There's nothing wrong with change. There was a point in this nation's history where women couldn't vote, and that is not equality or justice. There was a point where we were not allowed to drink from the same water fountain as someone who was white, and that had to change because that was not equality and justice. Change is not a negative thing, and this bill is change, getting towards equality and justice. I thought it was going to happen when we fought for Walter Scott. We did not get equality and justice. I thought it would happen when we were fighting for Alton Sterling and we did not get equality and justice, and we're back in the same circle. And the whole world is tired of marching. They're tired of the protests. They're tired of the strife. This bill will end that. And I don't say that lightly because we've been fighting this for years. We've been looking at bills. We've been disagreeing with some. This bill will change that. Because the one thing I do is I fight for these black families when they are victims, but I have no fear in respecting the cops who love their job and speaking up for them. And this bill protects them. Why? Because you're going to hear some senators say it hurts them and it does that. That is untrue. It hurts the rogue officers who are causing the problems. It protects the good officers who are some of my very good friends who are out there doing their job, risking their life, because the rogue officers will be monitored by the data plan. You will know what officers are bouncing around from department to department, brutalizing and getting away with it. And it won't harm the rest of the officers. You will know which officers have a history of doing this type of behavior. That's what this bill will do. It will normalize procedures that are in use in departments that will stop police brutality. So change is not a negative thing. The people that are trying to stop this change are the problem, not the solution. You're looking at the solution right here, our little boss, who tells us what to do all the time. So her words, as Congresswoman said, encompass this bill.
That's right.
We must make her dad have changed this world for all of us. Thank y'all.
Now you will hear from Antonio Ramanucci, a great lawyer from Chicago, Illinois.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, but more importantly, I give my greatest thanks to you, Congresswoman Jackson Lee, and to you, Congressman Green. This is historic because if I had an opportunity, and there's no way that we're going to take the name George Floyd away from the bill, but this really is a common sense bill. It's a bill of common sense because when someone says they can't breathe, you should be able to ask the person who's listening to that statement, I can't breathe, do you believe him? George Floyd was not believed when he said he could not breathe, and he died as a result of that. He died as a result of a lack of officer discipline from the municipalities who have a custom, who have a custom practice and procedure to not discipline police officers, which allows them to act with impunity. This bill, make no mistake, will solve that problem. Qualified immunity is a get out of jail free card. That's what it does for police officers. It allows people who seek justice. The 7 that I wear on my lapel, this is for the 7th Amendment, the right to a civil jury trial. Qualified immunity is a way to strip away the 7th Amendment. And this George Floyd police reform bill will not allow to do that. We need the Senate so badly because we know that our president will sign this bill on the shoulders of these great Congress people. And the leaders and the Speaker of the House, we thank you, we are grateful, and be happy to answer any questions after my colleague Justin Miller.
I guess the words of today, for me, just listening to everyone speak, are pain and change. And in this country, you don't get any change without the pain. And black people in this country have known this for a very, very long time. And I think that last year, with the killing of George Floyd, the rest of the country saw it and was woken up. Thank you, Congresswoman. Thank you, Congressman, for putting in the work that should have been done a long, long time ago. The pain that this young lady has to feel has nothing to do with how you may feel about what happened to her father. She's going to have to deal with this for the rest of her life. So she deserves change because this does not have to happen again. The pain that all of these family members behind you are feeling, they deserve change because this does not have to happen again. Policing should be fair, it should be equal, and it should not needlessly kill members of the community. And with this law, once it's passed by the Senate, it will go a long way to stopping that, as my colleague Tony just described to you. I'm gonna finish with this. We're gonna ask the Senate to do your job. Think about this young lady as you cast your ballot for this bill. The country has experienced pain. This community has experienced pain. This family has experienced pain. Let them experience some change. Let us know something good can come from something bad, because this never has to happen again. Thank you.
Right now, we're going to bring somebody who you all have heard of because he's been, I mean, incredible in demonstrating grace under fire. Y'all remember the first time Philonise did an interview? He could barely speak. He was crying so hard. Now listen to him today. I almost sound like a politician articulating why we have to have this change. So he's going to come up and speak before his brothers and sisters do so. And then we're going to try to take some of your questions, not only about this legislation, but also about the upcoming trial, as we also remember that next Saturday, this time, will be the 1-year anniversary that Breonna Taylor was killed. So there's a lot of meaning in today. Mr. Philonise Floyd.
Thank you.
We all know, less than 24 hours, I had to speak in Congress. That was June 10, 2020. My heart, it was heavy at the time. All I could think about was my brother and how Gianna said he was going to change the world. I think about my brother over and over again. I have no choice. You all have no choice. You see him every day on somebody's TV, somebody's t-shirt, and it's pain that we're feeling every day. Due to the accusations of a $20 bill, my brother was murdered by 4 police officers. Derek Chauvin had his knee on my brother's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. Nobody tried to render aid, none of the officers, but it was people protesting, and they stood up out there, please, somebody get out and save him. His life is valuable. My brother said, I can't breathe multiple times, but the officer sat on his neck with a smirk on his face. My brother screamed, tell my kids I love them, as his soul left his body. I can't stop thinking about that. My sister, she's crying back here when Congresswoman started talking. My brother, he was valuable. He was an asset to this family.
Yes, he was.
But for this world, he's changing it. He's a global asset now. He told me time and time, my name will ring bells all around the world. I never thought it would be just like this. I thought he would be somebody on a TV show or in a basketball game. I had no idea that I would have to watch my brother being buried in front of millions of people. It was devastating. I want to thank Congresswoman Shelia Jackson Lee. I want to thank Congressman Al Green, and I want to thank my whole team, because without them, we wouldn't be standing here today. And that young lady who was 17 years of age, who recorded that video,
Yes.
I thank you so much. The footage that she had, nobody would have believed it, but he showed up with that. When she showed up with that footage, she showed everybody that this is real and we need to handle it right now. So today I stand before you thankful that the George Floyd Justice and Police Act of 2020 has been passed. I have been chosen to turn my pain into purpose. That's why I started the George Floyd Foundation, but now I have the Phalonis and Keita Floyd Foundation. This is really, it's glorifying to me that we will have social change. I have a team of professionals around me, and we're working hard together to try to implement laws and work alongside police officers and elected officials, federal, and so on. Anybody that feel that they want to be involved in this situation, I thank you all for stepping up, because we have protesters all around the world who is willing to walk the street in a pandemic and COVID is killing people, but they all said the same thing: I can't breathe. That is a national statement. You can't take it away. I can't get my brother back. It'll never be the same. I go to sleep sometimes. Sometimes I'm up in the middle of the night wondering why my brother had to be that person. But as I visually look out and see what's going on, I understand we needed change. But it's the pain that I feel and my family feel every day. There's no more Thanksgiving with him, no more Christmases with him. We'll never have holidays with him again. So it's important that you all, everybody who's watching this, understand that we will have change. You just have to be the change, and you have to force it and make the change. So I thank you all so much for listening to me today. And before I leave this podium, I want you all to know, if you can change laws to protect the bird, you can make federal laws to protect people of color.
Right.
Thank you all so much.
I won't stand for anyone suggesting this family is promoting hate and dissension among police and community. Simply will not tolerate it. And to add to not only the pain but the understanding, I'm going to bring up who I asked before to come forward, and that is Tanya, who is the big sis, little sis, kind of fits in, but she and George were so close together. Thank you for your spirit, dear. And let me put this aside. We're going to be going back over to CUNY homes, so we've got a whole bunch of folk, I believe, over there. We're going to his home. We're going to his place, if you will, in just a few minutes when we finish here. Thank you very much. Tanya Floyd.
How y'all doing? The first thing I can say, this is got to be one of the greatest days of my life. You know, this is awesome. And when I say this, I speak for my sister, well, our sister, brother Terrence, and Bridget Floyd couldn't be here today. First of all, let me say that. And Shasha, of course, that's the big sister. This is incredible, and I know he's smiling down on us. I know he's smiling. I know he's sweating.
That's all right. You'll be fine.
Okay, I'm gonna make this real short.
No, that's all right.
I just want to say I love you. And this will embody my brother's spirit. I thank all of you, everybody. I love you. Thank you. Thank you.
That's all right. Brother Rodney Floyd. All right.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson.
You know, our brother's tragic, horrific, horrible death. It took the world to stand still through COVID to witness what we see as minorities in this country. For 400 years, it took the world to stand still to see our brother and Gigi's father to lie on that ground for 8 minutes and 46 seconds and just beg an officer for a breath of air, to beg him for his life. But it wasn't one officer. The angles we saw one officer. But at the other angles that came later in days, we saw 3 other officers on him. Feet, back thigh, the back, and the other officer's knee on his neck. And that was so horrible and tragic, hearing the man beg. And I got that video at 4 in the morning, and I stayed up wondering how I'm gonna tell my family, how I'm gonna tell them what I just witnessed from one of our brother's friends who sent me the video. And I was getting ready, dressed up, getting ready to go to work at 4 in the morning. And I just couldn't do it, I couldn't move. I stared at my phone, stared at the video, called the young lady back and said, "This is my brother," after probably 10 seconds of watching the video. And she's like, "Are you sure?" I said, "I know my brother's face, I know his voice." That video was so painful, it's just stuck in my head. Plenty of nights, don't sleep. It's, you know, it just hearing him. But the world stood still and saw the justice that we've been seeking, trying to tell the world about for 40 years. So, with this George Floyd Act, I would love to thank Miss Congresswoman Shelia Jackson Lee. This lady stay dedicated. She calls us, speaks to us, gives advice, and God came with a great group of friends as well. And I would like to thank the NAACP, the Houston Black Caucus, National Caucus, as well, the ladies, and then so many countless others that have been so supportive in this situation, as well as our lawyer Ben Crump and his team, everybody, Mr. Al Green, the same. It's been so much love and support from our Houston representatives, and we thank you guys for all the love, and also all the people his death has touched around the world, people, everywhere we go. All the people that's watching this, thank y'all. We love y'all, the support that we get, the encouragement, and trust me, I love y'all, thank y'all, and y'all marching in the middle of this COVID pandemic for our brothers, for his rights and our rights as well. And we must get this qualified immunity in that, and we're not saying that's gonna deform police, but it's gonna bring some justice for us. It makes them be aware and sensitive and what's going on and what they are doing. You know, and again, we got invited to Congress, and we saw our councilmen and women hard work. And you know, again, we sat in that room and saw them fighting, and I wish that everyone could have a chance to go see that, people, because they stayed in that room till midnight, fighting for our rights. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
I gave it too soon. I'll just hold it out. Brandon Williams is a nephew, but as they say, not any old ordinary nephew, really infused with Big George's spirit. He poured it into Brandon, and he is with the family every step of the way. Brandon Williams.
Thank you, Congresswoman. From the bottom of our heart, we appreciate everything you do, the relentless work, all the hard work you put in, we appreciate it. I won't be long. I want to start with the word accountability. I think the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act definitely holds police officers accountable. I think when you look at my uncle's murder, a police officer kneeling on his neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, we have to hold him accountable. Either he's a murderer or he's not qualified to do his job correctly. Either way, someone needs to be held accountable. There's no way police officer get a call about an alleged counterfeit $20 bill.
Yes.
And a man, a loved one of ours, is murdered for 20 US dollars. Someone needs to be held accountable. Did not resist arrest. Repeatedly said that he couldn't breathe, and no one rendered aid. So again, either the police officer is a murderer or he's not qualified to do his job. Either way, we want accountability. And I think this act holds people accountable. It bans no-knock warrants. I think that's a step forward to making sure there's never another Breonna Taylor who died in the comfort of her home because of a no-knock warrant. If you sit and count all of the families that's lost loved ones that were unarmed at the hands of police, I'll probably be naming all day. It's no way the list should be that long. There's no way families should feel the pain that we feel, because it's a lot of sleepless nights. So in ending, please pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. Thank you.
As has been said, the trial begins this coming Monday in terms of the jury selection. All eyes will be focused on Minneapolis. And as I open it up for questions for lawyers and others, let me just simply say, I hope the people of Minneapolis and the state of Minnesota, let me again acknowledge Ilhan Omar and the other elected officials that have been so supportive in that state, senators and the members of Congress and others, and of course the State Attorney General, who has proceeded with the appropriate guidelines of the law, Attorney General Ellison. Let me ask the people of this great state, part of the United States of America, to remain open to the facts. Let them be purveyors of justice, and let them not be couched in negativity, wrong information, and disinformation. That is my prayer. That's what we in Houston will be praying in the hometown of George Floyd. We'll take your questions right now. We'll take questions.
This question's for PJ or someone else on the family. How are you guys, I'll let you walk forward. How are you preparing to deal with this next chapter of having to live through a trial that obviously will have all eyes on it?
Yes, sir. When we prepare, we can try to be prepared mentally, but honestly, it's one day at a time. And I mean, we stand together as a strong family unit, and got a bunch of great people around us, and just one step, one day at a time.
Yes, we talked about it, we prayed about it. We're going to keep faith. We're optimistic about what's going to happen because we have a great team behind us. We feel that we will get a conviction and we will get justice.
And when it comes to that, the message has always been peace and civility when it comes to dealing with this. Obviously, there are two sides to the verdict. If it doesn't go your way, what's your message to the community as to how they should react if it doesn't go your way?
We're not considering that right now, but what I can tell you, we'll keep fighting for justice, not just for my brother, for anybody else who has to go through this. It shouldn't be any more tragedies. This should be the last one. But I thought after my brother was taken, it wouldn't be any more of this, but it's not changing. So I want to thank everybody, like I said once before, for this George Floyd Policing Act. This is happening.
And speaking of this act, is this the first step in hopefully changing the world, as Gianna has mentioned, or Daddy's been changing the world? Is this the first step in hopefully the Senate and the President will sign the bill?
This is the first step of 2021. Well, like I was telling you over and over again, we're going to keep fighting. There's people around the world that are doing the same thing. We're all pulling together, we're stronger in numbers. This is a global thing. It's not just us. We're going to do what we have to do. We're going to put in the work.
Who's talking?
No, I think that's the next question. Any more questions? I'm sorry?
Well, a lot of the family is going to go to the trial once it starts on May 29th. A few family members are going to jury selection, but they know it's going to be a long trial. They anticipate it may be 4 to 8 weeks. So they're just trying, as they said, to get ready for this marathon trial. And, you know, talking with my colleagues, Congressman Green and Congressman Jackson Lee, we are reminded, I remember in law school they said, if you don't have the facts on your side, if you have the facts on your side, argue the facts. If you don't have the facts on your side, attack the character of the other party. We anticipate they're going to try to do this to distract us from what we see on the video. They're going to call George everything but a child of God and try to make you forget what you see on that video. But you heard who George Floyd was. And so we're getting ready for whatever and whensoever may come. We will be ready.
I love it. Whatever and whensoever will come.
But press conference is here? And probably not. The family is going to be preparing to go through that ordeal. I know they're contemplating if the time is right and attorneys feel appropriate. The people in Minneapolis want the family to come up to a rally with Reverend Al Sharpton. Any other questions?
Questions?
You want to talk about Cooney Homes?
Yeah. I tell you, Gianna sure looks good standing next to that tall man.
That's a bodyguard.
We're not finished yet. I know you all have some mobility, but we're going over to the homestead, if you will, the CUNY Homes. There are people waiting for us there. We're going to speak from the heart. We're going to have, if you will, a rally to the extent that we're dealing with the CUNY Home residents. But what we want to say now, you have heard from a myriad of individuals whose hands have been in this. I think when you heard from these brothers and sisters, and Jaja's not here, we've got some other that are not here, you have heard from those who have had pain since that fateful day in May. That's a lot of pain. Sometimes you bury someone and that pain eases only because they died in a way that you said they fulfilled their life. These family members who are not selfish enough not to acknowledge other family members have not had that, for lack of a better word, luxury. Breonna Taylor's family has not had that luxury. I imagine Tamir Rice's mom and family have not. And we could go on, and I'm glad that you mentioned the way that Pamela Turner was killed, on her back. So what threat was she? Laquan Daniels, who was running away at 16 years old. So, I mean, the role goes, and then I remember I met, all of these mothers were called mothers of the movement. I met Michael Brown's mother. And I just called him a bouncing baby boy. He was a big boy. And I'm a mother, and I talk about boys like that and sons. He was a big boy going to play football at college. He was on his way to going to college. So as we end this press conference, we want to be reminded of all the people who are still feeling lost. I want to say thank you to all of the witnesses that were out on the street with videos that got videos of I think there's a video of Laquan. There's videos of different places. I think I saw Walter Scott running. I think there's a video of Walter Scott. Trayvon, unfortunately, was in the dark of night, but the story was, without question, one of the vilest stories that we've ever seen. I think Ben and I were down in Florida, among others. So I want to thank these witnesses. I want to thank these just man and woman on the street. I want to thank the 17-year-old in Minneapolis that Brother Crump mentioned. We need to say that that's the video that we saw.
Hero. She's a hero.
She is a hero, she's a shero, and the pressure will be on her as they go back to Minneapolis. She is probably, was at 7 when Gianna was, bright and with the world in front of her.
And she'll be called to testify.
And she will be a witness. I want to thank all of these persons. And then I want to just let you see the international impact. New Zealand. These are the crowds. They were in Syria, they were in Egypt, they were on the continent of Africa, and that's where we're going. We're going to George's home. That mural is right here in 3rd Ward near CUNY Homes. And I use that on the floor of the House, and I ended on that because that's the angel that George Floyd has become. So let me thank my colleague, Congressman Green, for his potent message. Past president of the NAACP, and let me thank those who have flown in. And now we will take this opportunity to go to Truxilla. I'm going to really hand out the address before I say amen, because I really I want you to see. I think they've even spruced it up for you all to be able to enjoy. The address is housing 3260 Truxilla. 3260 Truxilla. That's Truxillo Street, Houston, Texas 77004. Again, 3260 Truxilla Street, Houston, Texas 77004. In the last month, we have had the birthday of the assassination of Malcolm X rather. We have had the passage of this bill. We have coming up the commemoration of the transatlantic slave trade. All of this is surrounding us. And the only thing I can say is what I hope America will take from this is nothing but goodness. That's what we saw here today. Goodness, change, power of the change, and a new day in America where we walk hand in hand together, members of a United States of America, and that we put behind us what we have seen, and January 6th, the attack on the citadel of democracy. America needs to go forward, and this trial will give us the opportunity to do that. Thank you all very much. God bless all of you, and God bless the United States of America.